and welcome back to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. A couple of mass stuff, some CDC stuff, some stuff about the White House. We also have some Olympics. We're going to talk about Simone Biles, obviously, and we're going to talk about the Japanese softball pitcher in case you haven't seen her miraculous accomplishment. But before anything else, I'm going to get his attention, and we're going to ask him the most important question of every day. Mark, how are you feeling?
Mark is feeling good.
That's good. That's a change because you were, I think yesterday, was it yesterday you said you were frazzled?
Yesterday I was frazzled. Today I'm better.
Okay.
We're on, and I'm gonna go with the Elmo. I'm just gonna speak about myself in the third person today.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You brought up, I had a couple of things, and then you kind of brought up the Simone Biles, and I was like, of course, that makes perfect sense. We should talk about her. Withdrew from the team competition.
This isn't even an update. While I was reading, when you were making fun of me, she is today withdrawn from the individual all around as well.
There you go.
Which
I did not know that.
No, I didn't either until I just picked it up. But
yeah,
she withdrew. Mental. They keep saying mental health.
I'll take the simple side of this, and then you can dive in. So the simple side of this was she's old for a gymnast. Typically, people her age are put into pasture at this point in the sport. I don't mean that in any negative facet. That's just, at this point, she's old. It has been a drain physically and emotionally. People who train for the Olympics, you typically put in your 9 months pre-training. Then you go into the Olympics. Because it was stalled in 2020, she had to go through the whole process again. So there was kind of like a double taxing of mental and physical preparation as compared to what a normal Olympics would be. And that is kind of like the basis of the withdrawal. But with that also comes like all of these kind of like philosophical and moral questions with her withdrawing from the team.
Well, this is my take on it. As many have said in the article I was reading, I think it was on ESPN.com, to a lot, she was the face of the Olympics, especially for the Americans. She is the greatest gymnast of all time. I don't think there's any debate of that. The Nadia Comaneci it's Simone Biles. And as you said, she's old for a gymnast. She's won more medals, more all-arounds, more. And I didn't see this, but my mother said she heard an interview with Michael Phelps, who is a guy on the Olympic stage who can relate to what Simone Biles was going through. And he just talked about the mental strain and the pressure that goes with you are just expected to win. And when you get to that point where it's no longer thrilling if you win, they're no longer happy if you win, you either win or you're a failure. And it's a burden to take. And I know she's been, she's been a spokesman for a lot of other things. And I think that as we look at it and people are like, oh, she withdrew from the team competition. Oh, is she letting people down? And then there's people that always run to the support of like, anytime anyone says anything about mental health, there's people who automatically run to the support. And this is the way I think. Obviously her Olympic career is over. She's not coming back at 28. I think this helps her. This bolsters her long-term legacy, image, whatever, because we had gotten so used to Simone Biles as almost like this gymnast robot phenomenon that now we've been brought very much back into the human element of it. And she is the fact that she's a normal person, just like everybody else, who accomplished all these things, she kind of took on this superhero quality. Sure. And, now we realize this is another reminder that she's not a superhero. She's just a person who's just more talented than everybody else, but she still deals with all this stuff. And I think going forward, because she's had the success, she obviously, anyone that's willing to associate themselves with, like I have mental health things going on here, sure, and I need to take a break. She's even better for society now, I think, than she was 48 hours ago.
Yes. So if you're asking me the question, does this help or hurt her legacy? There's so many different legacies. I would say 99% of her legacy is intact, or to your point, even better than what it was before. So like in the mental health community, she now has a legacy that will live on for a very long time. Even in the gymnastics community, I don't think her legacy is at all like tarnished. I think she's still the greatest gymnast of all time from our country. The 1%, like if you're talking about like legacy, and the 1% that is hurt is if you're talking about like from an Olympic standpoint, like if you're talking about like the Mount Rushmore of Olympians, this probably boots her from ever being in the discussion of like that Mount Rushmore of like top Olympians. And you know what? Like, that's okay. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that like there were clearly things that were more important. Her mental health, her physical health. You brought up the idea of what a lot of people don't realize. It's not that people can't do the sport anymore. It's the preparation leading up to it just becomes taxing. Like, you just can't do it over and over and over again. And that's really what gets people out of it. So from a legacy standpoint, I would say the only thing that is diminished, I wouldn't even use the word tarnished. She had an opportunity. There was an Olympian legacy that was within reach that very few people ever even get to consider. And she was able to consider it. And I would say that 0.5%, 1% legacy of being on the Olympic Mount Rushmore has probably left. And that's the only thing here that is really, truly lost. Anybody who wants to say something deeper than that or something, more so than that, I disagree with. That would be my only thing.
I saw this post, and it was a tweet, I think, from someone. And it said, Simone Biles won nationals with broken toes in both feet, worlds with a kidney stone, and has carried the burden of being the face of sexual assault survivors as a national institution failed to support them. So half of y'all yelling toughness can't even handle wearing a mask in Wegmans.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. But
it is a brutal sport. We should just add that in there too, because people think like you're just tumbling around and you're parading and dancing. It is a brutal physical sport. And I encourage you, if you've never watched the documentary on HBO or the Netflix series Cheer, go watch how brutal every day is for these athletes. It is rough.
Well, I think too, as we go back to the whole, I think like Michael Phelps, did he get 2 DUIs? There's a documentary. I think we talked about this before, and I can't remember what it's called. It is about people post Olympics and post gold medals in the mental health. And I think, didn't Michael Phelps start a foundation or something to help Olympians deal with their post-Olympic life?
Possibly. I did not know that.
Because so much of their whole life is just focused, and then it's over. Yeah. And then they just kind of get into the real world, and there's like depression and all, and they've talked about, especially people who get there and maybe don't perform as well.
Sure.
But it's all the angles of it, not just did I win, did I lose, did I get gold, did I get silver, did I not even make the stand? It's this was my whole life, and now my whole life's gone, and where do I go from here, and how do I replace this? And the suicide rate of former Olympians is higher than typical society. And it is a lot, because we've talked about it. And I told you I go watch the Tara Lipinski gold medal skate like once every 6 months.
That's right.
Because this is their shot. As we talk, Bryson DeChambeau, who's a champion golfer, he could go out and he can play like crap at the Masters, and next month is the PGA.
Yeah, and gets another shot.
Phil Mickelson won the PGA, and he didn't even make the cut at the British Open because they keep coming. The Olympics, God, it's 4 years away.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
I didn't see what you just put.
Oh, no, they were just commenting on it. She's an Ashley, this is not right. But the more I thought rationally about it, she is an amazing example of a human being, which goes along with your point, is that she is now going to be viewed as more of a human being than an actual athlete moving forward. And for her brand and for moving forward and doing good in society, that is significantly more important probably than another gold medal.
Absolutely.
It's a tricky question because like most people, when we're having these discussions, it's a little more kind of like interpersonal, or it's like right in their face. And for this, like her choice was really like, do I want to go out and try to be like on the Mount Rushmore of Olympians? And she said, my health is more important. And to that, like, if you can't respect somebody sacrificing the opportunity to be the greatest at something because they decided that their health was more important, I don't know what to say to you. Like, I don't have I want to rebuttal or I want to have a conversation, but I really don't know how that's not okay.
Well, the other thing I took from this in reading the tweet about, I did not know she won nationals with broken bones in both feet. I did not know she won worlds with kidney stones. One of the things that I learned from being the brother of a professional athlete is in going through this, we see these people on TV, and unless we hear like, oh, this guy's playing with a bad ankle or this place, we assume that everybody else is healthy.
Yeah.
And I remember once being in the locker room and I can't remember. I want to say it was Sheffield, but Mike would. Oh, yeah, it would have been Sheffield because it was in Baltimore. And Gary Sheffield's walking through the locker room after the game, and he's got ice bags on both knees. And I remember looking at, and Sheffield was like a stud at the time.
Sure.
He was, and I looked at Mike. I was like, "What's wrong with Gary?" And he just looked at me because he's got bad knees. Yeah. And you would never know. And I remember too, we were talking about a guy who was just, I can't remember who it was, but he was having a terrible season.
Okay.
And I'm like, dude, this guy sucks all of a sudden. And Mike just looked at me and goes, he's probably hurt. And I was like, why would you say that? He goes, because it's like there's guys out there playing hurt all the time, and some guys are just hurt a little too much and they can't get the job done anymore. But and so there is that aspect that all these people out there in train. If you're in the Olympics and you're banged up, and one of these a gymnast has a bad hamstring or a bad ankle or a bad knee, and they're still going, and you're just like, oh, they're 100%, and they're just like, I mean, and from being an athlete of your own, one of the things of being hurt is forget competition and forget even preparation. Sometimes you have trouble sleeping, and then like if you can't sleep right because you're in too much pain, forget about the preparation, and now you're fatigued, and it's a never-ending cycle. So that's one. This is a tangent off to her mental health issue, but just in reading the broken bones and the kidney stones, it reminds you that you see these people and you assume they're at 100%. Right. Lots of them aren't. Lots of them aren't even close.
No, it's impressive how many of them are actually pulling off what they're pulling off. Because I would argue the majority of Olympians or athletes or whoever's competing, majority of them are not 100% healthy. Very few athletes are ever 100% healthy.
Correct.
This one's fascinating. It kind of builds off what you were saying. For those of you who don't know, Japan just won the gold medal in softball. They beat Team USA. 39-year-old Japanese softball pitcher, and I'm going to mess up her name. I don't know how to say it. I know that her last name is pronounced Yuen. The O is like silent. So Yuen, she just threw in the gold medal game. She threw a one-hitter into the 6th inning at the age of 39. She turned 39 5 days before they won the gold medal. To me, this is incredible. So my question was, is she the most impressive athlete at the Olympics so far? Because as you have all these people like setting world records, winning gold medals for the first time for their country, like it's an array of stars like accomplishing things. But I read this and I was like, this almost makes no sense.
I was watching, what was that show called? Not Ninja Warriors, American Ninja Warriors. And my kids and I used to watch it all the time. And there was one 2-hour episode, and they're talking about this dude, and he was, he was a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
And that was he's a 52-year-old yoga instructor who's going to compete. And I'm like, I am not turning this off. And they drug it through, and is it NBC show? I think it's NBC. Whatever network it is did it great because he was last. 2-hour episode, and he was the last guy that they showed. And after a while, my kids are like, why? You've watched Ninja Warriors, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My kids are like, why do you care so much? I was like, because he's 52. Like, you don't get it, but he's 52. Yeah. So, and part of the Olympics, and we get to gymnastics and figure skating, you see it in swimming, they'll put the ages up, and all of a sudden, like a 20-year-old for America won a silver. Right. Katie Ledecky won, and the American, she took silver. She was 20, and we see that on the youthful end. But to see it on the 39-year-old end is such incredible. It's such a great story.
And don't get me wrong, like there are athletes that get to go to the Olympics that on the team sports that are like the elder statesmen. Like they get to go and they're the mature adult in the room and they've been there before and this is what to expect. Very few of them, though, are actually playing or participating. And nobody is actually in a gold medal event being like the stud carrying the team. At 39 years old, to almost throw a no-hitter in the gold medal game against Team USA is like, I just find it hard to believe that somebody's going to do something more impressive than that this summer.
No, I agree. You're absolutely right. There is the mentor people on some of the rosters. They don't give the mentor the ball in the gold medal game and say, go take the mound and bring it home.
No, they do not. Thank Wise Markets for us.
Thank you to Wise Markets for all they do for the Midday Show and the community around us. Get all your grocery needs, all your pharmacy needs, all your pizza needs, you can get flowers, you can get bakery, you can get everything. I'm still July, it's still hot. I'm still loading up on the ice cream.
Yeah.
It is still not that winter is not ice cream season, but there's just something about like when it's 90 degrees out, ice cream is the ticket.
Yeah, so, I'm with you.
All your good stuff at Wise Markets, and they're in every community around our region and, spread far and wide. So thank you to Wise Markets. And please, if you're a viewer of the Midday Show and a reader of NorthcentralPA.com, please support Wise Markets and thank them for all that they do.
Awesome. We also have Eat and Run Catering. We also have Moon and Raven Pub. And we also have the Break Room. Did I just do what you just did?
Nope, you did well.
There you go. And in order to win, join the Midday Show Facebook group. Once you are a member, not only will you get notifications and different things like that, you will also have a chance to have your name drawn. If your name is drawn, Mark will spin that fancy wheel over his shoulder for you to have a chance to win some gift cards from the sponsors we just mentioned. Today's random winner from the Midday Show Facebook group is Amie Kayhanfar.
I think you're right. And she does, and Amie wins a T-shirt. She definitely wins a T-shirt.
The YH is like, because you could almost do that silently. Like you could almost say it's Kayhanfar. Kayhanfar?
I would say the H is silent. I would say.
You don't think the Y is silent?
Kayhanfar? I would say it's Kayhanfar. Okay.
You see what I'm saying, though? Like the YH, like I think that could be one syllable, like Khan, like Kayhanfar. Kayhanfar?
You know what her friends call her?
Amie?
Amie.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Let's see what Amie wins today. The underhand spin. I will never get used to the underhand spin.
Oh! I had it and it missed by like
a fraction of an inch.
You don't like the underhand spin?
Yeah. No, it's the underhand spin. I can see it on mine. That is maybe the closest we've ever had.
I was just about to declare. It's like when you putt it and you're ready to go reach and it stops like a revolution and you're just like, hey! I thought it was home. I thought I had a $50 gift card. A little bit. If I was a little bit more of a man, Amie would have just won $50. But no. I have let her down just like I've let so many people down.
Are we still talking about the wheel, or have we moved on from the wheel?
That is all-encompassing statement.
Okay. For the back end of the show, for those of you who haven't seen, the CDC released some new guidelines yesterday. Let's just start here. The CDC, they are recommendations. They cannot actually mandate anything. But along with those CDC recommendations, the White House is looking into mandating federal employees having to be vaccinated. And like some of the topics I bring to you, it's because I almost haven't made up my mind on the subject.
And you need my guidance.
I just need to think out loud with you and just kind of throw some stuff back and forth, be wrong, be right, and just kind of see where I settle in on stuff. And this is one of those instances where when I first saw this, I'm not really sure where I land on it. I go back and forth on the fence the more I read, the more I see. So I'm curious kind of your opinion, because to be honest with you, I don't have a sturdy opinion yet on the subject.
Well, here's my question.
Okay.
And this is as I go to every day, and I understand why they're encouraging people to get vaccinated.
Yes.
And I understand why they're continuing to encourage people to get vaccinated.
Sure.
But I also understand that the people, almost by this point, if you don't want to get vaccinated, you're not going to.
Correct.
So doesn't it, what happens if we just let it play out, and the statistics say that the people that are being checked into hospitals and people in intensive care are like 99% unvaccinated people. Won't this sort itself out?
Yes, but the issue, and you and I have talked about this, I don't think the issue is, like, I truly believe this. I don't think the issue is necessarily freedom of choice, whether you want to be vaccinated or not. I think the issue is, like, can society withhold, like, can society run its normal course if people don't get vaccinated? So, for example, can hospitals keep, if so many people get sick, if X amount gets sick and the hospitals get overrun, or if the supply chain gets screwed up, then it becomes an issue. So the run its course philosophy, like, I'm not even against it. I guess the question would just be, when it comes down to numbers, can society withhold? Like, can it keep pushing forward?
I mean, this is my quick response is, society held the first time, and now that such a number of society has been vaccinated, or a number of, I'm sure there are people that are unvaxxed but have had it, and I know that they say the antibodies only stay strong for a while, but I'm sure in different people, who knows how often people get it again. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. I do get what you're saying. And this is what I told people before, like the whole thing with masks and shutting the world down. They're like, oh, it's political. It's because it's election year. I was like, no, because if our hospitals get overrun and all our medical workers die, then we are screwed as a society.
I will tell you,
that is what it was all to protect the medical community, because we need them and we needed them to survive this.
Because like you being centered to the left and me being centered to the right a little bit, I do think the one thing that you and I agreed on is that, like, there is a sense, like, this running its course is not the worst concept if it wasn't for the idea of the sustainability of functions of society, right? Like,
Correct.
If you knew the hospitals were geared up and there was enough healthcare to take care of it, like, I don't think you and I are anti letting it run its course at this point. If you wanted to get vaccinated, you clearly did. If you didn't want to get vaccinated, you are probably still, and to your point, never actually going to get vaccinated. So I guess for me, like, when you look at it from a federal employee side, the political half of it, to me, like, this, obviously, if you have numbers that you're trying to reach, if you have a goal that you're trying to get to, it clearly behooves somebody to then force their administration to have to be vaccinated, or to get all of the federal employees to get vaccinated. However, if you are a federal employee, and this is where the line gets crossed. If I work for a corporation and I know that that corporation's policies, and here they are, and I have to abide by those policies to work for that corporation, you follow what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's this idea that, like, I should follow suit with the corporation or the organization in which I am working with. But however, like, when you're a federal employee, your organization is the United States of America. And so can you mandate that a federal employee should have to do that? And that's why I'm so conflicted, because the whole thing is kind of based off of freedom of choice. But if you're a federal employee and your boss clearly has numbers set to reach a certain number of vaccinations, like, that's your boss. Like, do you almost have to fall in line, because that's the line of work in which you are working for? Like, am I making sense?
Yeah. I mean, but then it comes back to, like, I mean, and maybe this is a terrible example, but it's like, your boss can only mandate so much.
Yes.
And, like, your boss can't tell women you all need to wear a skirt. Like, yes. I don't think you can do, especially not federally. Like, so I think that's kind of what they're saying. Like, I've been hired to do this job. Now they're changing the rules of my job.
But see, this is the only part that's different, because I think you're dead on. The only part that's different, though, is like if I'm a federal employee, I'm sure there are vaccinations or things that I have to have or that they check for. So what would be the difference?
Yeah, I mean, that is
you see what I'm saying. So that's why
let me just jump in, and this is a perfect. I remember when I was coaching football, 20 years ago, I needed to get a time test.
Yep.
Now a time test just checks for something, but I think I needed to have a tuberculosis shot.
You definitely needed a TB shot for sure.
So so that's one.
And this is
are they allowed to mandate that as a high school coach you get a TB shot? Well,
yes, they are. And so the point I'm making is like they didn't force me to get a TB shot. It's just very clearly I wasn't going to teach or coach in this building if I didn't have one. And so my whole point to this is like I'm not upset at a federal employee who says I don't want to be vaccinated, right? Like it's like freedom of choice, go for it. All I'm simply saying is like, if your boss is saying that like you have to have this shot or you have to have this vaccination or everything else, then like, do you just not work for that boss? And this is the crazy part about this is if you're a federal employee, your boss is technically the United States of America.
It is fascinating.
It's a very unique situation. And it's one of the few, usually when you and I talk about stuff or I read about stuff, I typically end up I figure out my stance or I fall. This is one of those where like I cannot decide where I fall on this fence. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to think long and hard about this one, and I bet after I did, I'd still be somewhere in the middle because this is tough.
Yes, and again, like you and I typically like we try to find different ways to look at it. We try to find the other side of topics. The one thing that I will say about this, like the one thing that I think works against them is like when you set a goal and you have a number and then you come out and you just say like, we're thinking about mandating it so these people have to get it. I'm not saying that he doesn't want people to get vaccinated so that they are safe, but there is a political side to this that does feel like he is saying that I'm going to mandate this because we have numbers we have to reach. And that is the one part of this that I'm kind of like, your timing is horrific. Like you can't come out and set numerical goals and then come out and say you're going to mandate that federal employees. So that's like my other devils. Like that's like the other side of it where I'm kind of like, your timing in the way that you portray this isn't great.
Are you implying that a politician
would
put together an agenda that was not pure of heart?
I am implying that.
Wow, that is a stretch.
We should have like fireworks going off in the background.
You might want to check yourself.
Breaking news. We need like the ticker up above the top of it.
Politician with an agenda that disguises something.
Shocker.
I am surprised by that myself.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. So I found that fascinating. We also talked about CDC guidelines. They're also coming out and saying that schools, everyone in school should have to wear a mask. I haven't read the exact details, but that students, teachers, people returning back to school buildings should have to wear masks. Obviously working here yesterday, that was kind of like all the rave. People were kind of scuttlebutting back and forth and kind of gossiping about it. I will go back to the topic that I brought up earlier. I still think in the state of Pennsylvania, I think you are going to see, not that there wasn't rebelling the first time through, but I think you're going to see significant pushback from communities as far as like these CDC guidelines and whatever the state decides to do.
Well, and it'll be regionalized. And as I've been around the state this summer with my son playing baseball tournaments, there are places that we go in, when you're pulling in mini markets and in shopping malls where there are lots of people still wearing masks, lots of them. You go around central Pennsylvania here, we're much more rural and much more spread out.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the last time I saw a mask walking down the street.
Yeah. I had a friend who was just back in New York City, and she said she started to walk in somewhere without a mask, and she looked around and she was the only one who didn't have one because she typically is in the city, but she's been staying, out of the city with everything going on. So when she went back and she walked, at first she kind of looked around and she was like, oh, this is, it hasn't ended. It hasn't gone away, if you live in a different region or if you live in a different community. So I agree with you. Like, I do think at some point it's going to have to be regionalized. It's going to have to be, because I just think the state is too large, and I just think there's too many people that just have an opinion. There's too many people that have their beliefs. You're just never going to get everybody on the same page. If I were the governor of Pennsylvania, I would hope that's the one lesson I took from last year.
Absolutely.
Is that to try to get everybody in the state on the same page is a disaster. And so I'm not saying that different regions will always make the right choices. I'm not saying, but like, I do think that if you try to lump everybody into one category again, it will fall flat on its face like it did the first time, and possibly even worse than the first time, because I think the buy-in is going to be less than what it was the first time.
I agree. And I hope every state has learned that, because you can't pick a state that is just, there's these major clumps of metropolitan areas, and no matter what state you take, New York State, New York City is this, and then other stuff is so scattered, and there are so parts of the state that are incredibly rural and isolated and desolate. So I hope everybody would do that, because you're right. It's not just, it's how the people live and how they believe. Like the people that I've seen with these masks on aren't doing it kicking and screaming. They live in higher densely populated areas, and they know it's different for them.
Right. There's a different benefit, or here's the other part of it too. And this is not to be like doomsday, but this is the part that scares me more than anything else. I really, really believe that I think healthcare and hospitals are more at risk the next couple of months than what they were 16, 18 months ago. Because even though people had disagreements, even though people had different political beliefs, even though people, didn't always want to believe science, there was still a sense of buy-in because it was unique and it was new. And so even people that disagreed with masks, for the most part, like early on, like those first 2 weeks, that first month, people stayed home and people wore masks and people did the thing. And if we get to a point where it really flares back up, that buy-in will not be there.
I think what happened at first was people were really, really scared.
Yes. And what I'm saying,
never saw this before. And for those of us, and I got it. I had COVID and I had a cold for a couple days, and I stayed in my house for 2 weeks. Yeah. But other than that, so essentially I had an illness and there's so many people who either never got it or got it like me and had a mild case, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And we're like, it wasn't earth shattering. It wasn't life changing. And people don't feel like, to them, it was life threatening. So you're right. As we're 18 months into it, people don't think it's as big of a deal as they made it out to be, unless you have firsthand experience. When you see the people on TV who lost loved ones, who lost multiple loved ones, who've been in ICUs, who all those things, then to them it's really real. Right. To a lot of the rest of us, it's not. It may be real, but it's not real to us. It's like the wildfires in California. I know they happen, but they don't matter to us because they're way over there.
Yeah. And so that's my fear for like the healthcare system, is like the idea, like the waves that they avoided before, there was like this uniqueness and scare, like people were scared. I just don't think they're going to be scared. Like I don't. And I'm not here to tell you they should be. I'm not here to tell you they shouldn't be. All I'm simply saying though is, like we talked about, the one thing that you and I kind of agreed with was the whole point of this was to maintain the infrastructure of healthcare. I am a little more worried about the infrastructure of healthcare now than what I was 16, 18 months ago, because people aren't going to be scared. You could have a scenario where things get over, a hospital is just overrun because there's just not the amount of people buying into it like they were the first time.
No, I'm with you.
And it doesn't mean the death rate will be any more significant. Like I'm not saying here, like it doesn't mean that, but like people needed beds and people needed respirators, and they just might need more than what they needed the first time because people won't be as scared.
You may be right.
We'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weiss Markets for being the title sponsor. And thank you guys for, here's one take. We'll do this real quick. Ignorant take here. I think now that there's a vaccine, let the people do what they want, which isn't ignorant. I mean, we basically just said that for 50 minutes. If it doesn't end up being a big deal, then fine. If certain communities get gutted from it, so be it. Now that there's a vaccine, people have a choice, and we should be able to move on. Very similar to our take. Our only disagreement on that take was what we had said before about just trying to like maintain healthcare. But yeah, he's right. Like if it's not a big deal and it doesn't fracture healthcare, like everybody's had the opportunity to get it. It's going to be like I said to you before, we're going to learn a lot about how society thinks in the next couple of months.
Yep.
A lot.
I'm with you.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weiss Markets for being our title sponsor. And we will be back tomorrow. We have an idea for our topic tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe I'll feel better about it by tomorrow, but we'll find out.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
Except for the people who disagree with us. Jeff and I agree. Therefore, there's a right side and a wrong side, and we are on the right side.
At least on this show.
Exactly.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show.
We'll see ya.